First, IMAN is an organization based out of Chicago, and there we started a program that served returning citizens, reentry men in particular, in the areas of proper housing and job training. We began that program here in Atlanta as our flagship operation for the organization.
If you would, forgive me, what are some of the obstacles
Sure.
that people face when they're coming out of prison?
So when you think about someone who has a felony record, they're perceived in the community as still a criminal. And in ways in which we would normally come out of a difficult situation and bounce back on our feet, they receive the barriers of lack of access to housing, safe housing, clean housing, housing in areas where they can be closer to work, etc. And then they receive clear barriers to employment. That with a felony record, you're not able to get the traditional access to jobs as you normally would, or even the interview. So we're working to see those things change.
So if you would, sorry to have you
Sure.
do that, but that was great. Thank you for sharing that. So what are some of the things we're doing for the Green
So our Green ReEntry program, it focuses in on the health and wellness of men returning home from prison. And so we offer a housing program, a transition housing program, and a job training program. In our job training program, we focus on two areas. One is soft skills development, allowing for them to get access to trainings that prepare them for job interviews, a life plan, 5-year plan, ways in which they can really just kind of reset their lives. Mentorship, group therapy almost, where they can meet others who are striving to do and lead in the same directions that they are, and making successful steps to a better future. Second to that is our vocation training. And in our vocational training, we focus on fields in construction. So our graduates receive an apprenticeship certificate in plumbing, in HVAC, and in electrical. This is an introduction to a field of study that we hope that they will continue in and begin to build careers.
So what are you hoping to build careers? It sounds like, rebuild lives. What is your vision and mission for the Reentry Project?
Our biggest mission for this is to put a stop to recidivism, to really stop the cycle of young men coming home from prison and seeing no other choice but to do the same things that got them in trouble in the first place. To be inspired to live their lives in a better way and to do more for their community.
And sad to say, so many people in the community are targeted, for the, prison industrial system that we have. In a way, it's hopefully fighting the system, by creating enriched lives and impacting generations.
Definitely. I think as a society we're waking up more and more to understand that the mass incarceration is a social and communal problem, not just a problem for those who have been incarcerated. It affects the family, it affects the offspring, it affects the neighborhood. And so the more and more we come together in that sense of building a network to support the lives of those returning home from prison, we'll see the broader impact on our communities, making our neighborhoods better.
And one of the things I'm really moved by is that in part this is a matter of your spiritual path as well as are important from a faith community standpoint. If you would share why that was important.
Sure. Yeah. In the Muslim tradition, we believe that every human being has an inherent value, like most others. And that inherent value supersedes any wrong action. That we should always have a second chance. We should always have an opportunity to correct our wrong. And so what we do as a community in supporting diverse groups of people to come together, we're deeply rooted in our spirituality, we're deeply rooted in our faith tradition, but broadly informed by those who are being affected by this in our neighborhoods and communities. So it's an idea of calling all of us back to that focus on humanity, that focus on the goodness that's in everyone, and have faith in that. IMAN means, it's an acronym, Inner City Muslim Action Network, but it's a word in the Arabic language that means to trust. And so we're putting our trust in people, we're putting our trust in God, we're putting our trust in the better potential that we could have in our society by working together. So that's what we stand for when we say we are a part of the Inner City Muslim Action Network.
And I think I also cut you off in terms of talking about specifically like how many people have been impacted, and that it's transitional housing and also vocational.
Sure.
You are going into communities and building homes.
Mhm.
You're also impacting the people who see what you're doing.
Right. So just you want to get a more feel of the impact. One core area of our work is in community organizing. We organize around the issue of criminal justice reform. We offer a roundtable discussion every week that neighbors, communities, those who are impacted by the issue of criminal justice can come together and share their ideas and be a part of the growth of the Green ReEntry program. That has seen over 300 people in this year, and since we began, probably 1,000. When we began the program of Green ReEntry, we took in an application of 25 individuals and we accepted 10. And since then, we've graduated 3 cohorts of 10. We anticipate growth. I think the waiting list for our next cohort has exceeded 50 at this point, and we know that this is a need in the community, and we aim to grow it and allow for more to participate.
You know, one thing I've also heard about is so many people come out with some, emotional issues, mental health issues.
Yes.
Is that also something you're addressing with the soft skills?
Yes.
And what do
So
you think?
behavior health. When we talk about health, wellness, and healing in the community, IMAN began with a clinic that serves the community in Chicago, and the idea that there are so many elements of components of health. The mental health has always been ignored in many cases when we're talking about servicing the poor, those who are in disadvantaged communities. And so what we began to do this year in Atlanta is hold grassroots power hours around mental health and behavior health challenges, giving the community access to professionals. Our Green ReEntry cohorts, they receive that firsthand. It is a part of what we offer to them, counseling on every level in which they would need it. But definitely I think that it is probably one of the larger areas that's overlooked for returning citizens to get support and help in. And so our program focuses in on that as well, behavior health as a critical issue for returning citizens.
Anything I didn't ask that you'd like to add?
I love how we're just having a conversation.
Yeah, I know.
It's
so grateful that you're willing to do this.
yeah, no, I think it's important to let people know that this is not just a program for people who are returning home from prison, but this is a program for us to have healing in our communities, have a sense of ownership of how we want to see the future of our country, the future of our state, and our neighborhoods. What will they be like without our support and help? So that's what the movement is about.
Awesome, thank you.
Has there been any, are you guys involved in anything as far as on the legislative end? I know like Florida has like a big movement going on in this election. I don't know if that means like does Florida like have something on that's just going to be on the ballot? I'm asking, do you know?
So we have,
You look at me.
we have been involved in working directly with the Georgia Justice Project and seeing legislation change to protect and support those who are returning home from prison, especially when we're talking about parole laws. That's here in Georgia. In our Chicago projects, we have been directly facilitating new legislation to be written and passed. We've had 2 bills passed within the past year supporting returning citizens to have proper access and then also to not have the barriers of proximity when they're doing work for their community, and just because they're in association or close to another convicted felon, this was a violation of their parole. Just as kind of a side story, we had 2 young men that I met personally. They were working for us on a job site, and because they were both felons, they were charged with violating their parole for being 10 feet from each other, and they were reincarcerated. And kind of this sparked kind of an anger, but also a sense of let's do something to change it instead of allowing for it to happen again. And we drafted legislation in Chicago to change that rule so that when you're in spaces like that, the rule doesn't apply. And so things like that are very important for us to look at what's happening on the ground that's a problem, that's really prohibiting formerly incarcerated men from succeeding in their growth and development, to really affecting it to ways that across the board in the state we see the change happen for more than just those who are working with us. But that was one successful campaign that made a lot of sense. Sometimes it's surprising that people overlook these types of challenges that are happening in that respect. But it comes down to respecting human life and allowing for someone who has served time to now come home and be dignified in their work, dignified in their homes, dignified in their communities.